So, what do you think?
I don't know. A story where an animal comes from humble beginnings to work his way to joining a prestigious basketball league in order to aspire to be a champion like his J-named hero idol? I don't buy it. Wait. Sony totally copied my style!
Of the story of ones with additional story elements.
Did this video just become a merch ad? Wait, bet.
Oh, and this is absolutely not canon in any way.
You know what? I think I'll just become a LeBron fan instead. So, let's talk about GOAT. So, let's talk about my movie, which, by the by, there's a character by the name of Coach Dennis, named after Joshua Dennis. Shout out. I don't care what anybody says, this is my movie, so I get to talk about it. So, GOAT is a movie about a goat by the name of Billy Cunningham Harris, minus Billy Cunningham, who wants to change the game of Rollerball, proving that smalls really can ball. Now, what did I think of the movie? Slam dunk, nothing but net, off the backboard, brick, airball. Well, let's talk about that. But to sum my thoughts of the movie, I thought that it was a shot off the backboard, bounced off the rim, and then the music and animation alley-ooped it and cleaned it up. So, I liked it. Yeah, let's talk about it. Alright, so this is, by the way, probably one of the only times I'll ever talk about another movie on this channel, and this one in particular for obvious reasons, right? Unless there's another movie with a similar premise to my series or short films in the near future. So, animation. Let's get the wonderful part of this movie out of the way. The animation's phenomenal, fast-paced. It's like watching a jam-packed highlight reel. I loved it. I freaking loved it. It was amazing. I also liked what they did in particular when, for example, Will made his first shot in his game against the Shadows. I liked how the stat sheets would come in for that character. For Small to score a point, for example. I like how it mentioned some of the other characters in that way as well. I also like the commentary on the games, just a subtle detail that adds so much, and actually a missed opportunity from my project too. So definitely a lot to learn from this movie. And I will say, just seeing a pass that just sinks into your hand, that sound effect is always so satisfying to hear and to watch. I love it. And I am so relieved that this movie decided to really lean into the animal aspect of these players, and that really does go into how they play and interact with each other on the court. Great work. Animation, phenomenal. That being said, the story. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed on that front, and I think I had higher expectations going in, just given the fact that I made a similar project. Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown. It felt very generic and tried to appeal to as big of an audience as possible. Now, I wasn't too much of a fan of leaning specifically into the premise of Smalls can't ball! Smalls can't ball. Smalls can ball. Kind of standard stuff. Not too much depth going beyond that, really. Wasn't too much depth beyond, ha! You're a goat. You suck. Because you're small. I didn't like how mean and hateful a lot of the other characters were to Will, and not really for a good reason either. But, you know, that does make him a little bit more sympathetic. Though it just seems at that point to be like unnecessary prejudice, but I guess that was kind of the point that the movie was going for. But either way, everyone around Will was just so close-minded, which I found very funny. there were other animals in that world too that could easily be put down. For example, I don't really see what makes a caribou that much better at roarball by comparison. And the ostrich straight up literally had feathers for hands, but the goat is where we draw the line. Okay. All right. I wonder how this world would have felt about a hamster playing basketball, or a mouse, or a roach, because there's a roach that actually talks in this movie. I wonder how, like, let's make it like, let's get like super small. Let's like go to flea. No. Better yet, cell, bacteria, amoeba can't ball. Okay. If they ever do a follow-up movie, I want to see how far they'll carry that storyline. Or maybe, I actually did remember seeing a point where the grizzly bear was teaming up with a rabbit. It was very brief and brushed over in the movie, but I did notice it, and it kind of showed Biggs really turning around and giving Smalls a chance. And it was showing that Will was changing the game. Maybe in the sequel, they will kind of lean in on that, like all sorts of animals and using their different strengths. Who knows? But as stands, this immediate premise was very, surface level. And I get it, you have to appeal to a mass audience. Speaking of all this, like, variety or lack of on the teams, how the other teams are built right now, excusing the Violent Thorns, I'm talking about the Shadows, Magma, Tectonic, Sandstorm, all of those teams, they all kind of suck right now. Like, Violent Thorns are supposed to be the underdogs of the story, but given how everybody has a unique playing style and unique abilities, they are really the only ones actually that I could get behind being a viable team. Like I said, the Shadows, the Tectonics, the Sandstorm, and the Magma are all made up of these rough and tough players, so essentially a basketball team made up of all forwards and centers. I don't really see any of them like pulling off being a good point guard or anything like that. Violent is made up of a team where everybody can clearly have a role. Will clearly being the point guard, right? The Steph Curry of the team filled that Steph Curry role. You have Archie, who's the power forward. Olivia could be the short forward, just dashing through and driving in the paint. And Lenny, who's a great center, obviously the height. Jet, be a good shooting guard, like backup for Will, and really could play all sorts of different roles. She was that character. She was the original GOAT. And then Moto. Whatever. I mean, like, Moto could be whatever. Moto's Moto, It's not the Moto is icon. Yeah.
I make you feel weird, and you're not sure why.
So I'm very curious to learn more about what they could do with these combos, And speaking of, the one team that I did notice was built a little bit better than some of the rest of them were the Shivers. I'd like to learn more about the Shivers one day. Seeing the polar bears or the caribou and the snow leopards, that seemed to have been an interesting team makeup for sure. But I don't know. Maybe since, this small made it big, maybe others can make it big. I don't know. Maybe throw a sea lion in there or a penguin. Just a lot of interesting ideas that right now at the moment are not fully being tapped into. And the other teams just kind of felt like obstacles. They weren't really fully characters. And even the, main antagonist, main attraction also felt like another obstacle. It's kind of, and even the teammates, they just felt like characters that had an arc, but it kind of got brushed over in a montage. Like, I would have loved to. I actually am curious, like, if there's a director's cut of this movie where they did include this type of stuff in there. I don't know, would be cool to find one day. One of the teammates, though, that I did really appreciate them leaning into was Jet.
Just get me the ball.
Got a plan to correct?
Just give me the ball.
Jet, the Michael Jordan of the film, the all-star who might be past her prime. But either way, she was a big standout of the film. I liked how she had a really hard time letting go of her ego, but at the same time, her ego was arguably well-deserved, right? She carried the Violent Thorns, and she continued to carry them. but she did have to take a little bit of humility. She did have to rely on others, rely on her teammates, and I do feel like that was executed pretty darn well. One aspect that I did really like, though, was the scenes where they put an emphasis on community and the fans behind the scenes. It was really nice to see that, where Jet and Will went to the diner and see the community getting behind the Vineland Thorns. And unfortunately, that scene was cut short, like many of them, was cut short by a Mercedes product placement. That's something I feel like I missed out on in my project that I didn't dive into as much. The community built around you to get you to where you are. I actually really like that message. I also really like the co-ed aspect of Rollerball. I personally, for my project, I modeled the TCG League after the NBA, and I'm sure in the world of Mascotta, there's another WNBA adjacent league in the world of Mascotta. But because this project began as a project with the boys, I did keep it an all-male league. Expansion for my characters in the future? Absolutely. Alright. Comedy. Comedy was really not my style, I'm going to be honest. There were some parts that got a laugh out of me, like Jet roasting Maine and the gap in his teeth. That was funny. Like his tongue being like a prisoner trying to break out of jail. That was good. That was good. But most of the humor felt very memey, and yes, they do the goat scream at some point. Also, the movie as a whole felt ridiculously fast-paced. Not just the basketball scenes, but it just felt like they were just like completing a checklist. Like, all right, let's get to Will's down on his luck. All right, let's get through that. All right, let's speed it along. All right, Will's recruited for the team. All right, speed it along. All right, we're going to the community scene. All right, everybody hates Will. All right, Jet even hates Will. All right, she hates the pie. She likes the pie
now. All right, we're moving on to the next scene. All right, yeah, Jet likes Will now. Okay, all right, or we're disbanding the team now, and then the bad guys, we're disbanding the team, and then we're picking back up the team right where we left off, like 1 minute later. And
this movie does not slow down. I guess they had a 90-minute runtime to really fill, but man, slow it down next time, please. The games, like I mentioned, they felt like a highlight reel, but they felt too much a little bit like a highlight reel. I would have loved them to lean into it a little bit more. Whatever. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, references. There were a whole ton of good NBA references. Some that I absolutely did, and probably some that I absolutely didn't catch. Like the Allen Iverson step over, or even how Steph Curry himself was modeled quite a bit after the GOAT. Him, like I said, being a point guard and everything, very much on a similar playing style to Steph Curry. I actually felt that Will versus Maine was actually a concept of LeBron James almost versus Curry too.
Who was that based off, and why was it Dylan Brooks?
I saw him last night too. See, people are taking from the movie what they're supposed to take.
And of course, you couldn't go without seeing the Knights jersey in the diner. I mean, that was cool. That was pretty cool. But that's the thing. It was very interesting. I felt like this movie was a love letter to basketball, but it mainly felt like a love letter to NBA rather than basketball on a whole. As a matter of fact, for example, at the beginning of the movie, we saw Will doing some of the similar drills that Steph Curry would do in some of his practice routines. I would have loved to see more of that. I would have actually loved it once again with pacing if they had stretched those scenes out, but especially that one. Seeing Will run through more of these drills. Here's an example, a comparison to my project with the Story of Ones. I remember modeling Carmelo Boggs. It was a combination of Carmelo Anthony from the Knicks. The color scheme was also Syracuse, but also it was modeled after Steph Curry, right? Because he's the point guard. He can kind of see different directions. He's a short character. And he was also a little bit based on Muggsy Bogues, but anyways, one of his special moves, the midair shell shift, I modeled that after one of Steph Curry's drills that I saw, where he would actually shift his body midair and make a shot. And you know how hard that is to really pull off, especially in the middle of a game. So I added that to Carmelo's unique skill set. I would have loved to have seen that a little bit more. I would have loved to see that a little bit more in the game of Rollerball. And you do get moments like that, like for example, Jet uses her tail a lot to shift where the ball is going. It's just great, again, fantastic, but I would just love to see a little bit more. Like, don't be afraid to skip over that. Like I mentioned earlier, the action sequence is amazing, but because they went by so fast, I really felt like the techniques and everything that they were using throughout the plays really could have just used a little bit more screen time to flesh them out so that the sport really was something that we all could engage in. So that the homages didn't feel like just that, homages. They could have felt like something more. Okay, so here's an example of what I mean, just in case what I said made sense or didn't. I'm just going to go ahead and play this clip of the Shadows versus the Thorns. As you can see here, also the alligator knocks Will over for no reason. But anyways, Will here, he shouts, yo Archie, pick left. And to the audience and to most people, we're probably wondering, like, what does that mean, pick left? And so basically what's going on here, I believe at least this was what they were going for, was Archie, or he was letting Archie know, hey, look, there's somebody about to screen you, about to block your defense on your left side. And so the alligator is sneaking down the court, and because he's aware of that offensive player trying to screen him out, he's like, nah, I'm going to ignore you, the bull character. I'm going to get ahead of you. We see that going on here. And then alligator goes for the jump, and then Archie blocks it. And stuff like that, I would have just loved to have seen more of. And I actually think that this game against the Shadows is the most technical this movie gets. I would have just loved to have seen a little bit more of that. I want to, don't be afraid to make the audience bored with that kind of stuff. The fact that I'm able to do this in retrospect, the fact that I'm able to treat this like a highlight reel, like I'm watching the game and seeing what they're doing, that is actually kind of cool. But again, it shows how much hard work the animators put behind the scenes and how much of their work was scooted over. And I actually kind of feel like that's doing a disservice to the animators who did work on these plays behind the scenes. I want to see how some of this works, right? I want to see how the sport of rollerball works. I want to join Will on his quest to be better, or well, to join the Violent Thorns and see them become a better team. I don't just want to sit in the stands, sit in the bleachers, so to speak. I want to be there. And this movie didn't really do that for me. Then again, though, at this point, I do think I'm critiquing the movie for things that I wanted it to be for, rather than what it actually was trying to go for. So again, take what I'm saying seriously with a grain of salt. I'm just a guy, but I just would have loved to see more of that. That's all. Afraid to skip over that. As a matter of fact, that would have actually made Will's character arc a little bit more satisfying, because the moment where it stands, it feels like he's too good at everything from the jump, and seeing the hard work that he put in behind the scenes a little bit more, I feel like would have absolutely fleshed that out.
You know, in games, the greatest shooters of all time, make 4 out of 10. Right? You make 4 out of 10. That means you missed 6 out of the 10 you just took. So you want to try to be as focused as you can, making the adjustment shot to shot to make sure the next one does have a chance to go in.
And that's the thing. I would love to see more of his practice sessions, more of his work behind the scenes, more of the struggle that he had to go through to get to where he was now. Because let's face it, the limitations that he has as a relatively small animal are still there, and him being smaller, that's what he should have to overcome, not necessarily just people making fun of him. That's what would really turn this story from simply a feel good and feel inspirational story to a struggle to stardom story, to I worked to where I got. So important. So, another one of my first personal favorite parts of the movie. I actually remember when Will was shooting in the practice session in the cage. Will was shooting from under the net, then the then the free throw line, then the 3-point line, and then around the world. And I actually had a very nostalgic memory unlock when I remember my cousin, who actually does voice it voice one of my characters in my project, he said that he wouldn't go inside until he made similar shots just like that. And I remember me, when I was trying to get better at basketball, I would actually copy that mentality.
Which, by the way, I still want to mention, I'm not all that great at basketball, even though I still put a little bit amount of practice. I'm basically the stand under the net guy and do a layup every once in a while.
So yeah, once again, lean into that a little bit more. Really make it seem like Will earned his way up, because that just makes it a little bit more personal. So yeah, movie, decent. It was a successful shot. Definitely not all net. Music and animation carried it all the way. Like I said, more like off the backboard. So, I give it a 6 out of 10. Smalls can ball, y'all. That was the gist of the movie. So, right now, obviously, I have an interesting relationship with this movie and with Sony as a whole right now. I've never worked with Sony at all. But I remember when I came out of the Spider-Verse movie, I went in and I remember beforehand having seen a bunch of YouTube reviews and the internet going crazy for it. And I had a sort of like herd mentality and was like, yeah, how come other movies can't be like this? And yeah, this looks so cool. And then I actually saw it 3 years into my animation journey. I came out of the theater and I was floored. I was impressed. I was like, man, if I am going to get anywhere with my animation, with my storytelling, I gotta improve and step up my game. My writing game, my art game, my animation game. And I'm going to be blunt and honest, this movie did not have me feeling the same way. I mean, it was alright for what it was, but it did not have me feeling the same strong feelings. And I actually did see it twice. And yeah, over time, over this past week, I've had to come to terms with my feelings about this movie and how I felt about it, especially, unfortunately, comparing a blockbuster movie to my own personal projects and whether or not it invalidated my stuff from even existing. But then it really hit me. The fact that my bunk homemade idea was so similar to a big studio concept that they trusted to make into the theater, into a theatrical release, it really does show how far I've come in my own personal journey of animation. Almost 9 full years of learning animation. I obviously didn't show all of my journey on this channel, but still, I've been at it for quite a while. And even though stories may appear to be very similar, I've come to appreciate that it really is our unique perspectives that make the stories unique and really come to life. So, even though I'm small, I hope I'm able to ball or animate. And I'll let my own personal projects speak for themselves. If you all want to watch them, let me know what you think. If you are interested in any of the stuff that I've made animation-wise, feel free to check out my channel homepage. As a matter of fact, the Story of Ones is on the channel menu, and feel free to watch all of the parts. I'd love to hear what you think about the story, the animation, and any pointers that you might have that I might want to learn from. So, it's on the channel menu. Hey, this is JD back at it again a little bit later. I just want to give some concluding remarks. Just for starters, to clarify, yes, I was a little let down by the movie, but I still did think that it was good. It was a good time in the theater. I actually think it set out to do exactly what it needed to do, to give young kids someone to aspire to give an inspirational story, really to anybody, about not letting the doubters stop you. So it was a good movie. It just didn't break that ceiling that I'm so used to Sony breaking, because Sony has made great stuff before. And in harmony with the movie's message, actually, I'm not going to let a big movie release being so similar to my own work stop me from making stuff that I like to make or feel invalidated because of that. That's silly. As a matter of fact, there's absolutely many things that I can learn from this film, especially on the visual front, from seeing 200 of the best artists coming together to make such a wonderful project. So congratulations, Sony, to completing this project and really giving somebody, or really giving a lot of people
somebody once again to aspire to and something to enjoy. So kudos to you, Sony. And Dillahay, Rosette, the Violent Thorns ever want to check up with the Skink Ballers or Skink Vitality? I'm always up for that. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. All right. This is JD signing off.